Hello, today I'm going to talk about cardiometabolic risk and severity obesity in children and young adults. Definition: obesity is a medical condition in which excess body fat has accumulated to the extent that it may have a negative effect on health. People are generally considered obese when their body mass index, a measurement obtained by dividing a person's weight by the square of the person's height, is over 30.
So we know that the risk of type 2 diabetes is increased in overweight children. Fortunately, it still remains relatively rare, but the problem is that it's really a debilitating disease. And we know from a study that was by researchers from Harvard that the life expectancy of a child who has type 2 diabetes is dramatically decreased by probably something in the order of 15 years, and they'll experience severe complications by the time they reach their 40s. So this is not something you would wish on any child. So one of the goals behind our campaign is to prevent any child from getting type 2 diabetes.
Occurrence: global trends of childhood and young adults obesity have increased. Surveys from 144 countries in 2010 suggest 35 million children in developing countries are overweight and obese, and 92 million are at risk of overweight. This results in an increase of the prevalence of childhood overweight and obesity from 4.2% in 1990 to 6.7% in 2010.
Today, Lauren Painter is an active, normal weight young adult, but that's not always how it was.
I was the fat kid, so I got a lot of name calling based on my weight and physical appearance. As they age, there's a considerably high risk for those kids to continue to gain weight and become severely obese as young adults.
Obese adolescents were significantly more likely to become severely obese by their early 30s than individuals who were normal or overweight as adolescents.
Doctors Penny Gordon-Larson and Natalie Tay from the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill and co-authors studied more than 8,000 individuals aged 12 to 21 who were normal weight, overweight, and obese, tracking their weight progression over 13 years into young adulthood.
Risk factors. It includes environmental factors such as sedentary lifestyle, caloric intake, sugar-containing beverage, and fast food. Medications such as psychoactive drugs like risperidone and olanzapine, anti-epileptic drugs, and glucocorticoids. Genetic factors and endocrine disorders such as Cushing's syndrome, hypothyroidism, and pseudohypoparathyroidism.
Obesity. Obesity is a condition that is associated with having an excess of body fat. Obesity is classified as having a body mass index of 30 or greater. 3 decades ago, the obesity rate for adults was 15%. Today, the rate has more than doubled to 35%. At the same time, calories consumed by adults have gone from 1,996 to 2,234 a day. Obesity-related conditions include heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and certain types of cancer. These are some of the leading causes of preventable death. The estimated annual healthcare costs of obesity-related illness are $190.2 billion, or nearly 21% of annual medical spending in the United States. Obesity-related job absenteeism costs $4.3 billion annually, and obese people spend 42% more on healthcare costs than healthy weight people. African Americans have the highest age-adjusted rates of obesity at 47.8%, followed by Hispanics at 42.5%, Caucasians with 32.6%, and Asians at 10%.
Application in medicine. Leptin and ghrelin are considered to be complementary in their influence on appetite. Leptin, that is produced in the adipose tissue, sends signals to fat storage reserves in the body for growth and reproduction, and mediates long-term appetite controls. Ghrelin, that is produced in the stomach and duodenum, modulates short-term appetite control and food intake, while glucagon, like peptide 1, cholecystokinin, enterostatin, and polypeptide Y, reduce food intake.
Let me introduce you to Amanda. You're just meeting her for the first time, but chances are you're already making assumptions about how much she eats and how little she exercises, because she's obese. But I'm about to show you that there's much more than meets the eye when it comes to obesity. There are lots of Amandas out there, and they need treatment. Maybe you're one of them, or maybe you know an Amanda. It's time to act on obesity. But in order to do so effectively, we need to understand obesity. It's generally accepted that body weight is determined by a pretty simple formula. We call it the energy balance equation, and it works like this. If the number of calories that you consume equals the number of calories that you burn, your weight remains the same. If you consume more than you burn, you gain weight. And if you burn more than you consume, you lose weight. Most people think that those of us who properly manage our energy balance remain lean, whereas those of us, like Amanda, who eat too much and exercise too little, become obese. We view obesity as a lifestyle choice, and the cure for it is simple: eat less and exercise more. This may sound logical, but it's wrong. Let me explain. First, let's talk about set point. No, I'm not talking about the point in a tennis match when one player is about to beat the other. I'm talking about a theory that says that no matter what you consciously want your weight to be, your brain has its own sense of how much body fat it should have on board, and it has a complex system in place that very precisely regulates your energy intake and expenditure to keep you within a so-called set point range for body fat. So that whole energy balance equation, it's not something that you control voluntarily. Your brain regulates your calories in to your calories out for you. For your brain to do this, it needs to know how much energy you have on board at all times, and it knows this by listening to hormones like leptin, which is made in your body fat. You can think of it like a car. Leptin is the gas gauge that tells your brain how much gas is in your tank, but leptin is just one piece of the puzzle. You've got a whole bunch of other hormonal signals and sensors that are involved too. Your bones, muscles, pancreas, liver, GI tract and sensory organs, they all play a role.
Pros and cons. Overweight children usually become overweight adults if they don't change their lifestyle. Obesity increases cardiovascular disease because of the accelerated atherosclerosis process. Obesity is also associated to elevated blood pressure, atherogenic dyslipidemia, metabolic syndrome, and diabetes because of mechanisms which include insulin resistance, sodium retention, and increase of the activity of the nervous system.
In an experiment in a restaurant, people were randomly seated near strangers who overeat. What happened? Those people started eating more too. It's called mindless eating. That's because behaviour can spread like germs and have a big effect on your health. In the UK right now, there's an obesity epidemic, with over 2/3 of people overweight. Research has proved that the average obese person is more likely to have obese friends, and friends of friends, and friends of friends of friends who are also obese. In fact, if a mutual friend becomes obese, it triples your risk of being the same. You may not know him personally, but your friend's wife's co-worker can make you fat. So what's happening here? One reason is imitation, often unconscious. When you see someone eating, it fires up the same part of your brain as if you were actually eating. It's like our brains are practicing, and that makes it more likely we'll do such things in the future. Another reason is we reset our expectations. We look around our network and perhaps see people gaining weight, and that unconsciously adjusts our concept of an acceptable size. A larger body becomes more acceptable. That doesn't necessarily mean that you will put on weight as a result. Just that, unwittingly, you may be less critical of a friend who is putting on weight.
Conclusion. Obesity in childhood impacts all the major organ systems of the body and it is associated with a high risk of mortality and morbidity. An approach in the early phase of life is needed to change the concept of everyday nutritional influence and increase sports activity. Thanks for listening.